Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Heart of CX. I'm Joanna Palmer, and with me is Max, and we have a guest again. Max, do you want to introduce our guest?
Boy, I do want to introduce our guest, and we don't just have a guest, we have the guest. Today we have Shep Hyken. Guru is the best title I know to give you around customer experience and contact center. Shep, why don't you just talk for a moment about your business and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. Well, thank you very much. Guru is a big word. Thank you. And not a guest, but the guest. Would have rather you said the guest.
Oh,
Because there's the
my
guest.
the pronunciation is poor. All right.
But seriously, honored to be here as always to work with you all. My business, I've been doing this for a long, long time. I work with companies who want to build amazing relationships with their customers. And in the support center and contact center world, what better place to do it but right there on the front line, interacting with people in all types of different channels, be it phone, chat, and videos coming up real quick and even stronger and stronger these days. So, I've written books, very proud of that. My latest book, I'm so excited. I'll hold it up. It is called I'll Be Back. How to get your customers to come back again and again. And there's everything in here from very basic principles, foundational, that I talk about in almost every book. And then I get into the new content, which is about 80% or so new. And we talk about all types of different things. But I'll be back. So, Max, Joanna, when you hear those three words, I'll be back, what movie do you think of?
Well, that's not hard. That would be the Terminator. Your font on your book helped a little bit there.
Yeah, that is correct. Do you know there's actually a font called the Terminator font,
Really?
which is what my
Wow.
publisher found, and so that's what we're using. And but when I actually started with the idea of I'll be back, I hadn't even thought of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Terminator. But as I started getting into it, I thought, well, that's kind of a catchy phrase. And so we talk about terminating the competition, why customers would terminate you. And we play a little bit off of that. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun to write the book. The book comes out later this year. But if anybody wants to buy the book now, we have a special deal. You buy the book and you get the ebook instantly, like almost instantly. You have to download it. But we'll go to your computer, your Kindle, your Nook, whatever, at no extra charge. So you can start getting your customers to say, I'll be back almost immediately. You don't have to wait for the actual hardbound book to be delivered to you.
Awesome. And
How exciting is that?
Right? And loved reading the ebook, Shep. It was a great read. I love how you're able to boil down some of these concepts and make them catchy, whether it's the cheers effect or culture. And today I really want to talk about culture, about the chapter on culture and the principles that you outline on culture. Do you want to talk about those?
Sure. So I even wrote about this in like the very first book I ever wrote, that customer service is not a department. It is a philosophy to be embraced by everyone. And I've written about 6 steps to creating the customer focused culture. And there's a little bit of that that's woven into this chapter, but I came up with 7 new principles on what it takes to drive into the culture your customer experience.
Excellent.
I assume that hesitation is because you want me to cover all 7 of them.
I mean,
Hey, Shep, tell us about the first of those principles.
Sure. And happy to do that. So, again, first, most important thing is to recognize that even though we call ourselves the contact center, some of us are referring to us as the customer service department. We're not a department. We are actually just we're actually on the front line. I think we should be calling ourselves the customer retention department, and the additional revenue department, because if we do this right, we are getting our customers to want to come back again and again. And if we do it right and we train our people properly, they'll not only be able to take care of the customer for what they want, but they might have opportunities to cross-sell and upsell in the right situation. And I'll give you a very generic example of that. In one of the books I wrote called Amaze Every Customer Every Time, I used Ace Hardware. as a role model throughout. Now, this isn't so much contact center related, but it gives you an idea of what I consider to be the most ethical upsell or cross sell. If I go in to buy a can of paint and the person selling me that can of paint doesn't say to me, hey, by the way, do you need any brushes? Okay. If I get home and realize, oh my gosh, I forgot my brushes, I now have to go all the way back. Now, in the support center world, I want you to think about what that means. We get the customer to call in, we authenticate them, we have them up in front of us, we answer their question, but we don't give them that extra crucial piece of information, or we don't suggest something that they're going to need down the road. And what ends up happening is that customer gets off the phone, and they may not be upset with us or not, but they may be forced to call us back. And guess what just happened? The 2 calls, even though we would handle more information on that first call, are still going to cost more than that first call with that additional information. And when we're talking about efficiencies and managing the best experience for both the agent, the call center, and the economics of the company, I say we do the right thing and add that extra piece of information that that customer may not even be thinking to ask, or make suggestions on what they might want to buy. As a matter of fact, the way artificial intelligence works these days, if it's used in this particular way, an agent can be looking at a screen about a customer's past behaviors. The computer can analyze, this customer is the same as 2,000 other customers. This is what they're going to ask next. This is what they need to buy next. So,
Get in the next
train your agents to do that.
So, question: you're talking about this very much in a support lens, but I assume this would also be potentially a sales team would be similar, or like a sales support. If I'm the guy you call when it's not working, when I'm trying to buy something. Does that change the mix here in any way?
Nothing changes. Nothing changes. As a matter of fact, in that specific role, which is an inside salesperson or even an outside salesperson, before they go on their call, if they haven't done their homework and before they meet with that potential customer and know who this customer is, buying habits from the past, maybe they're none, but maybe through some piece of information, we're able to determine who that company is. We know what they want. We know what we're good at. And we need to not just, and again, the whole customer service is not a department, it's a philosophy, means that at every interaction that customer has with our organization, and interactions between people to people specifically, it doesn't matter whether it's sales, whether it's the receptionist, whether I'm calling about an accounting issue, like did you get my money, or I think there's an error in my bill, or we're actually calling customer support with a question or even a problem. Those are interactions, and every one of those need to be managed as if it's customer service. So everybody's involved, even people on the inside supporting each other. And as we talk about the culture, that's real important, because people who are on the inside, and that's one of the principles that it's for everybody, is that you're internal and you think, I don't ever talk to the customer. Yeah, but you probably support someone that does. Right. One of my favorite, again, generic examples is, we travel, at least we used to travel, but we're starting to travel again.
We think about it.
Yeah. I've been actually finally, I think and the number of trips I've done in the last, since the beginning of the year is not even equaled what I typically do in 1 month. But we're rolling back in. I see that happening. In travel, once in a great while, not often, I will actually check my bag. I try not to. But if the trip is 7 days or less, I can get it all in that carry-on bag. So if I check that bag, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and let's say I'm coming to visit y'all. You're in California, right?
I am.
Yeah. So I'm coming to visit you in California, and that's about a 3.5-hour trip. I see my bag go down the conveyor belt here in St. Louis, and I land out there on the West Coast, and I'm standing there at the baggage carousel, and I do not see my bag. Okay. That is a mismanaged experience from somebody who's downstairs, who put my bag on the wrong plane, or maybe didn't even get it to the plane, but somebody who never saw my smiling face mismanaged my experience.
And they created an experience. Yeah.
Right. And not only did they mismanage it for me, but guess who their internal customer is? The poor soul at the baggage claim office that has to deal with people like me who come in and say, you lost my luggage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've always really appreciated the concept of the internal customer, and, that the baggage handler, he never sees the customers, but he is giving that to the poor schlep who's talking to the people or the next guy in the line, whatever that is. And I've always liked, everybody has a customer, even if it's an internal person.
Right.
Using that terminology, I think is really, I don't know who started that, but I think it was brilliant.
Well, Jan Carlson back in the 1980s wrote a book titled Moments of Truth. And he said, if you're not supporting the customer directly, you're supporting somebody that does support the customer, or you're in a chain of events that eventually leads to that. That's why, I think there's probably at least 10, 12 people that would touch our bag if it goes down the conveyor belt. Somebody has to take it off the conveyor belt, put it on a truck, the truck drives it out. So maybe there's 2 people that load the plane. Then the same thing happens on the reverse when it lands. There's like 8, 10, 12 people that touch our bag, never sees us, but they have to do their job. And maybe that first person who pulls it off the conveyor belt as it's going down into the, down below where I checked my bag, that person, he or she doesn't put it on the right, truck, or maybe doesn't put it, they've now failed the next person in line and the next person in line. And eventually it gets to the front line, which is where I walk in and scream. I don't scream. I never scream, never. Yeah, exactly. So, well, let's go through these principles. What do you think? Should we do that?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. So the first one is just what we've been talking about, how everybody's in it. And principle number 1 is everyone has to be in it to win it, and everybody's buying in. I'm going to go through these. Stop me if you feel like you want to talk about one. And I think we're going to get to a couple that you are going to want to talk about in more detail. Number 2 is to follow the employee golden rule. And I've written about this, but I think it's it really it belongs here. And that is, you remember the golden rule? Let's see. This is like your quiz from back in Sunday school. The golden rule is what?
As you would have them do to yourself. Or
Close. It's actually he who has the gold makes the rule. No, that's not true. That's not.
Well, that's right. Dang it.
There were 2 versions of that I learned way back then. But no, do unto others you want done unto yourself. And that is a great concept. Well, the employee golden rule is to treat the people you work with, your fellow employees, and as a leader or manager, treat the people who, report to you the way you want your customer treated, or even better. So do unto them as you want them to do unto others. Make sense? So that's the employee golden rule. And I think it sets the tone. It's part of the 6-step process. I actually call it, being the role model, where a leader will say, this is how you do it. My favorite example of that is Walt Disney walking through a theme park back when he was alive, his own, obviously, Disneyland theme park. All of the employees, who they call cast members, knew that that's Mr. Disney. What's he going to do? Who's he going to talk to? And he saw a piece of paper on the ground. He stooped down, picked it up, and threw it away. And he called that stooping to excellence. And he said, I'm a role model. They will do what I do. They will treat the guests like I treat them. And so he just felt that was so important, to always be willing to, do even, a menial task of picking up the trash off the ground. So number 3.
Wait, I want to,
sure.
I don't even have a question. I just want to hit how important that is. Joanna and I have been talking to, C-suite people at companies and people who do training, and the number of times management will say all the right things and then turn around and not do them. Everyone has to take this training, but I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. I don't even have a question on it. And Joanna, you may have more comment, but I just want to stop and just hit that, because I think that is so important.
Yeah, and as I think about it, I'm like, servant leadership really is underscored here. It is, you're working for your employees are working for your customers, and it is that snowball effect of, at the end of the day, you do right by those around you.
Yep. And really the leader sets the tone. A number of years ago, I had a 9-city tour. We're doing some speaking where I would kick off, do a 1-hour speech, kind of the keynote speech. And then one of my trainers would follow me and do the entire rest of the day, customer service training. And the president of the 9 cities were spread out over primarily the East Coast region. But he showed up at every one. He
Mm.
introduced me, and he sat in the back, and he was there the entire day. I know he stepped out a couple of times for some phone calls, and I know he was multitasking, but he was there for his own employees to see that he felt this was important enough that he showed up at all 9 cities. And what
That's
kind of
huge.
a message does that send to his people?
Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah. Huge. It's
huge,
huge.
huge,
Huge.
huge,
Huge.
huge. All right, number 3, and that is to empower people. And we all know what empowerment means. But if you're going to hire people to do a job, let them do their job and train them well, onboard them properly. What I suggest is, there's some hard, fast lines. I believe that rules are actually guidelines, but there is a place, a line in the sand, if you will, that you do not want your people to cross over. Teach them where that line is. I have a client, and I'm not going to tell you who they are because I'm sworn to secrecy on this one, but they are a major manufacturer of automobiles. And they have a team that when a customer has a problem with a car and the dealer cannot resolve it and make that customer happy, it's this small team of about 15, 20 people that travel throughout the entire North American region, Canada, US, all states, and they work one-on-one to resolve the customer's issues, to try to get that customer and win that customer over. Remember, we're never trying to win an argument. We're trying to win the customer. And one of the things I learned is that they are allowed, even if the car is out of warranty, they have the authority to refund the customer's entire amount for that car. Now, how often do you think they do that?
3 times a year.
3 times a year.
It's got to be
Never
more.
been done.
Never.
Really?
Okay.
Never been done.
Even better.
They have the authority. That's the line in the sand. They can go all the way up to giving the customer all their money back for a car that's even out of warranty, but they figure out ways to resolve the customer's issue without having to go to that extent.
Wow.
That's pretty powerful.
How did
Yes.
the concept of 15 people across a major manufacturer? I guess it's just got to be a really phenomenal escalation process to get.
Oh, yeah. If it gets to them, there's a real problem. And usually it's with a higher priced automobile, a regular customer who's come in that they really feel like we're going to lose this because, the automobiles, people don't buy them every 3 months. They buy them maybe
Right.
every 2 or 3 years, 6 years, 5 years, whatever it is. But
plus.
yeah, 9.5 years, my last car. So it was a nice car, and at the end of 9.5 years, it only had 40,000 miles on it. So
Wow.
most of my miles I logged traveling are in an airplane. So, but nonetheless,
And with this, I mean, think about the customer experience there, just for that individual that's suffering from this issue, as well as those 15 people being able to take the lessons learned there, feed it back into manufacturing,
Yep.
prevent those issues from happening for all the other customers.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of it. We learn from people that are on the front line, no doubt about that. And it frustrates me so much when I go into a company that I'm asked to do a project for, and I go, well, tell me about your number one biggest, most common problem. And they don't know where I'm going with this, but they start to tell me. I go, well, how often does that happen? Oh, all the time. Every day we hear. I go, then I have 2 words. And I know you paid me a lot of money to be here today, but here are the 2 words. Stop it. Stop it. Or fix it. It doesn't. He's just like, it's time to go. If it's happening all the time, figure out why it's happening all the time and do something to mitigate. If you can't eliminate it altogether, but reduce it. Maybe, I don't know. It's just so many different things I can think of that happen this way. It's like, what's happening all the time? Why is it happening? Obviously, there's always going to be lost luggage. But with the new system they have, by the way, we talked about luggage earlier, which is the only reason I'm bringing this up. The new system does 2 things. Number one, you are now with certain airlines able to track your luggage and know it's on the plane or not on the plane. Number 2, rather than have to go and wait in line, the last time my luggage was lost, I was blown away by the positive experience I have. I said, it's not like I wanted to lose luggage again, but it was I got off the plane. I received a text immediately saying, "We are so sorry, but your luggage did not make your plane. It's supposed to be on the next plane. This is when it's going to get in. If you would respond back to us with the address that you'll be, it will be delivered to your hotel or home or whatever it said by whatever time." And I went, "Holy cow!"
Yeah, because the worst thing about losing your luggage is it's an hour and a half to A, figure out it happened,
Yep,
and B, go stand in the long line with the grumpy person who's been beat up all day, because what they do is hear people complain about the luggage all day.
exactly.
Oh my God,
It-
what a simple one that I'd never thought of. Oh, I love
yeah.
Yeah, and
So I
changing
won't
those
tell you that.
moments
Go ahead, Joanna.
changing those moments of misery to moments of magic is
Exactly.
definitely another theme of the book as well.
Yeah. And that's been like since day one of everything I've ever spoke about in my speeches and our training programs. And that's what in every book, I call it the foundational concepts. And we always lead with that. Moments of misery are bad interactions that happen to the customer, problems, complaints. Sometimes it's just an apathetic experience that they have that maybe in the support center world, if they're talking to an agent, they don't feel the love, if you will, from that agent. That is an apathetic experience that people might say, you know what, they resolved the problem, or maybe they didn't, but that person wasn't very friendly. So, that's the moment of misery. You have the moment of mediocrity, which is average, okay. How was everything? It was fine. What does fine mean? Fine is not fine, right? I refer to fine as the F bomb of customer experience. And then, of course, the moment of magic, anything positive above average in any way, even the slightest bit above average to over the top, this blew me away. That is considered a moment of magic. And when companies are called amazing, it's not that they're always over the top. It's that they're always at least a tiny bit above average.
it.
Whenever I call, I always get in right away without having to be on hold, always followed by something good. They're always knowledgeable. They're always helpful. They're always friendly. Even when there's a problem, I know I can always count on them. I know we're getting off on another tangent, but that's part of the foundational concepts that, yes, that too is in the book. I know we're going to run out of time, and I want to give you all 7.
Well,
Put it in writing, okay? If you are going to have a customer-focused culture, make sure you create some statement in writing that everybody can see and hold on to. I call this a mantra. And I love talking about the Ritz Carlton, who's taken 9 words and turned it into what the most important piece of information that any new employee and existing employee gets. And that is, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And once you learn that and you memorize it, which is 9 words, that's not that hard, then they train you and they have all these standards, the non-negotiables to make this we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen mantra happen. So that's putting it in writing.
And that's powerful, because if you're a lady or a gentleman, you're not going to be bickering over the dress code at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what the right way to do it is. And they start, that happens from day one. We touched on this a little bit in the concept of the employee golden rule, but number 5 is the culture really starts at the top, defined by a team, usually the leadership, C-level people, ownership of a company. Definitely it trickles down to supervisors and managers have to do it, but because as an employee, oftentimes the person that we're looking up to is that manager or supervisor. But recognize the leadership team is defining this, and they're putting it in writing, and they're communicating it all of the time. It's not a theme of the year. It's happening all the time. And when you can get that happening internally, keep this in mind. What's happening on the inside of an organization is felt on the outside by customers. So that culture is really important. Number 6, hiring right, and then assign people on to be amazing. And that means you hire them, you onboard them, you train them the right way. And finally, number 7 is make sure there's a good coach. And man, if that doesn't apply to what we do and who we have in our support centers, coaching and mentoring, especially now as people are working from home, how do you properly manage and coach them so that they can be successful and still feel like they're engaged with not just the customer, but if they're engaged with the company at a higher level, they'll be even more engaged with the customer. I did
Love
that
it.
fast. All 7 of them.
Got them all in.
Those are really great. And I think oftentimes in terms of the coaching, in terms of the leadership, those agents get elevated into the supervisor role, and it's developing a different set of skills, ensuring
Sure is.
that those supervisors know how to lead. Thinking about my first time in management, it's elevating that individual contributor. It takes some time and effort and energy to ensure that they know how to transition from that individual contributor to that leadership role.
A big mistake that support centers make is they say, this person is great managing the customer experience. Let's make them a manager. It's they do it in the sales team too. Let's take our best salesperson and get them to stop selling and start managing. And they may be terrible managers, but they're really good at helping others, solve problems or, selling. And so we need to be careful who we put into that management position. But I really believe that the coach and the mentor is so important. One of the things that I like to preach is something I call 1 to say yes and 2 to say no. I didn't come up with that idea, but the idea is if you do it right, we talked already about hiring people, empowering them to do the right job, that kind of thing, and you let them do their job, you'll teach them. If you know what your boundaries are, you know where that line in the sand is, right? And if you can get them to understand that, and they can say yes to somebody and stay within bounds, they shouldn't have to come back and ask a manager permission for that. What they should do, however, is make sure they document it properly, because this isn't something I did, but it's something it feels like I'm allowed to do. And they just do it. They go back to their manager and they say, this is what I did. And the manager says, that was great. I'm going to share this with the rest of the team. And now we've got a big win for everyone. Or that's great. You know what? Here's another idea on what you might want to do the next time this happens. But no matter what, you don't have to keep coming back to me because I've now given you permission. And by the way, if I can't say yes and I have to say no, I'm going to go to my manager and say, now what do I do? And the manager will give me the support, teach me what I need to do. And now I should never have to go back to that manager.
Right.
And by the way, there are reasons you would say no. It's illegal. It's not something, we even sell. We can help somebody find it, Zappos.com. I want to order a pizza, but we sell shoes. We don't sell pizzas. That's not the answer that Tony Hsieh wanted the Zappos employee to do. And I know the late and great Tony Hsieh, he even tested it out. One night in the middle of the night, he called the 800 number and said, I would like to order a pizza. Can you help me do that? And this person says, where are you located? And he says, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. They said, well, let's find one for you that's open all night. And that support agent that normally helps when it comes to selling shoes helped Tony, not knowing it was Tony. And actually, it was his friend. They were in the apartment together. And they were just seeing what they could get away with. But found out that these people, that's what they're trained to do. And by golly, that's what they did.
Joanna, do you think you can tell your Ritz Carlton story in 1 or 2 minutes? It just fits this so well.
Yeah. In terms of the Ritz Carlton story, where the maid had found an individual's laptop, and that individual was very frantic. He was on his way to Hawaii. I'm sure you've heard this one, Shep,
Yep,
where
it's a great
very
one.
frantic about this laptop, and that maid being empowered to do right by the customer goes to the airport, jumps on that next plane, and hand delivers that to that individual. And I love that story because it was a learning experience. There may have been better ways to handle that, but she didn't get reprimanded. She took care of the customer. It's ladies and gentlemen, treat each other like ladies and gentlemen. It's doing right by the customer and then utilizing that and coaching to that experience to talk about other ways to handle that.
When Horst Schulze, who is the first president of the Ritz Carlton, tells that story, he goes, we give every one of our ladies and gentlemen up to $2,000. They're allowed to spend up to $2,000 on a guest to make the guest happy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember when I walked into a room at the Ritz, and I'm very fortunate that sometimes my clients put me in really nice places wherever they're having their meetings, and love when they have them at the Ritz Carlton. And there were dirty towels on my floor of my clean room. And on the way out, I mentioned it to the housekeeper, who was appalled that she missed these towels. And when I came back later, there was a little note, I'm so sorry about the towels. And there was a little piece of chocolate, probably cost 50 cents, 75 cents. And it was very appropriate. She says, I hope you have a sweet evening or something cute like that. But it was very appropriate to spend 75 cents on a piece of chocolate to say, I'm sorry. And Horst says, now, we talked to the housekeeper and we explained that you don't have to get on the plane. You could have just gone to the airport, made sure it got on the plane and that somebody there delivered it. They have a service that does that. But it wasn't like she stayed there either. She turned right around and came back.
That to me, I mean, if it were me, I'd feel like, well, now that I'm at this property, I should do a little comparison, research. I'd find justifications to get a little more than that.
And I love that about the story, that her intent was not to get the vacation. Her intent was take care of the customer, and then I'm flying back to show up for work the next day.
Yep. It's a great story, and but it does illustrate the great point that we empowered somebody to do the job. In this particular case, the housekeeper took care of it, did what he or she was empowered to do, and then came back and was not reprimanded for making a bad decision, but praised for how she cared enough to take care of the customer, and then taught the next time this happens, here's how you another way to handle it that's probably more cost effective and will give you the same impact.
Yeah, and a little less stress on her.
Yeah, exactly. So that's great. I love that. What a perfect way to kind of close out our little.
I was thinking the exact same
discussion.
thing. Shep, we're so grateful you came and joined us today. We really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to next time we get a chance to chat.
Well, thanks for allowing me to talk about the book. And it's I'llBeBackBook.com with no apostrophe. There's no apostrophes in websites. And by the way, if you go on Amazon and you type in I'll be back, you get a bunch of Trump T-shirts that say I'll be back, which is kind of funny. It's like, okay, there's that. But if you type in I'll be back book into Amazon, you'll get there. But I'llBeBack.com, and you get the free ebook. So
great.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. The time went so fast.
It is already, we did fun. We always have fun.
Yes.
Indeed. Sure. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks.